Welcome to Inhale Life Conversations from the Chicago Asthma Consortium, where we really explore lived experiences, clinical challenges, and innovative solutions shaping asthma care today. I'm your host, Dr. Sharmili Nayanheis, an allergist and asthma specialist at the University of Chicago. And today we're diving into a topic that is really incredibly important, but often overlooked, the intersection of asthma and neurodiversity. Also, this month is the Autism Acceptance Month. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we really thought about focusing on neurodiversity and asthma. When we think about asthma management, we often focus on medications, triggers, and medication adherence. But for many patients, especially those who are neurodivergent, managing asthma is not just about remembering to take a medicine, it's about navigating sensory experiences, routines, communication differences, environments that might not be designed with them in mind. So I do have a brief vignette that I just wanted to mention before we go into introducing our speaker or my guest today, and talking about his experiences. So first, a short vignette to think about is it's 8:30 p.m. and Malik's mom is trying to give him his inhaler before bed. Malik is 9 years old, loves trains, and has autism. Tonight, like many nights, he refuses, not because he doesn't want to breathe better, but because the inhaler tastes too sharp. The spacer feels weird on his face, and the sound of the puff makes him flinch. His mom tries again. She explains, she reassures, she negotiates. But Malik is overwhelmed, and eventually they skip the dose. A week later, Malik ends up in the emergency department with an asthma exacerbation. And so from the outside, it might look like just like a missed medication or poor adherence, but underneath there's really something deeper, like a sensory experience, a communication difference, and a care plan that really wasn't built for how Malik really experiences the world. So, today, again, we're going to explore how we can better understand and support neurodivergent patients living with asthma. And I'm really excited to be joined by William McLemore, who is a neurodivergent patient living with asthma and who really brings deep insight into this space. So, William, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, William, if you wouldn't mind just telling me a little bit about your, asthma journey, and also maybe your history of being a neurodivergent patient.
I will say, um, like I said, I've been diagnosed with asthma, at age 10. I was diagnosed with exercise-induced asthma because that's when it was first found, was when I was joining track and field. And,
Mhm.
I was running. I mean, there's some hunches from my doctor's app. I had it before that from past patient files, but it was really fully discovered when I joined track. I'm running. I'm having issues breathing. And I live in an area actually where I think it's like asthma is at its most diagnosed in my population of my county because we live in the refinery. So I'm sure my doctor was like another kid with asthma. It happens. It's super common. And for me, like I said, I joined track. I had asthma. I'll probably say that probably navigating being a runner, being a runner that then did track and cross country and high school and some bit in college, trying to navigate that while having asthma was probably hard. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna say, but like there were some days where like I had to find a pharmacy at like 6 a.m. before some meets because I forgot my medication and it's in and my medication is in Illinois, but I'm in a meet in Kansas. So now we got to figure out how we're gonna get me my meds before their race and stuff. And that's part of some of the neurodivergent thing is like constantly having a checklist at things that when I lived at home and being like a kid, I had my mom to help me.
Mm,
take care of those things. But when I was in college and then when I became an adult and you have to find those things out on your own, um, there were more challenges I think that were presented to me as I grew up. Not just like remembering. It's funny you said the part about like the puffs taste short and funny because actually I'm kind of the same way just because like I could feel the differences in certain inhaler puffs. And granted, I'm an adult. I take whatever I get, whatever the insurance pays for. But I definitely do have my preferred inhalers where I'm like that feels a lot better. Like I'm more likely to do the procedures I need to do because this is a preferred, inhaler uh, for me.
hmm
And like I said, like I've had a ADHD my whole life. I mean, as long as I can remember, and that's in a whole different category of having to navigate my life through having ADHD and all, and and how that affects in all areas of my life.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, William, for that introduction. And again, really excited to have this conversation with you. So again, like for you as a patient, what does it look like for you to manage asthma when you have these like sensory aversions, for say, or again, maybe challenges with not organization, but for maybe taking your medications. Like,
Yeah, I'd say for me, it's kind of like if you find a plan that you prefer that sits well with like your with my particular sensory things, like I said, now that I'm more of an adult, I'm kind of like I gotta suck it up and do what I need to do, but I do have struggles like taking my bronchodilator. That's kind of the one that I struggle taking with the most, mainly because I have to rinse out my mouth af uh, afterwards. That's the part I don't like. It's not taking the inhaler I don't like. It's the having to rinse my mouth out and actually gargle the water. And I don't like the feeling of gargling with water. It makes me feel like I'm going to puke if I have to gargle because I have to make sure the whole mouth gets rinsed. And there's been a few times where I've not done it properly and I've got like not bronchitis, but like the laryngitis, and I've gotten sick from it. So for future times, I make sure I'm more careful, but it's just like more of a process to do it because of like I said, I just don't like the gargling the water part. So for me, I'm just like I try to remember it, but when I do it, it's just like I have to think of the whole process, and because I don't like that part, it's makes it harder for me to even keep up on it and then to want to do it. And I think for other people that are neurodivergent that really would have more sensory issues than I do,
mhm.
like I said, like I think that would affect it, like that would affect them even more. Cause like I said, I have one medicine I have to take every day. Now, how much I do it is, among a bunch of other factors on top of the sensory part. But I know for some of my friends that do have like autism and other sensory issues. And for some of my students, I know from some of my parents, they do face the same challenges. And I think again, what usually works at the end of the day is once we find some that meets those sensory needs, everyone's able, like the puzzle pieces
Great.
fall and fall into place better.
Great, great. Yeah, that's really eye-opening for me, as a clinician. And I'm wondering if you have any examples of things that clinicians might overlook because they're not experiencing the same way that a neurodivergent patient is.
Yeah, I think maybe like I said, it's just kind of like how you said with like that student Malik, because a doctor just prescribes a medication where they think that that's fit. But if they don't have asthma themselves, or they themselves don't have experience using the medication, like they're not experiencing the medication. So
Mm,
without that experience of knowing the medication, like how it, you know, like like how it sounds or how it feels or how it tastes. Because like I said, like I know for me, like two of my fast acting inhalers, like ProAir is one I love. The Ventolin inhaler I hate. I hate the Ventolin and inhaler. And actually, I got a few years ago, I got a new one. I also it's like a white inhaler. I can't remember, but it has a white body and an orange cap. I love that one because the mist is softer. The mist is like the absolute softest, and it has zero taste to it. So for that one, I feel like I'm just breathing. So I feel the absolute most natural for that. So I feel like without clinicians knowing that facet of like not all inhalers are the same, or they might have a taste, or they might be, for some kids, like they might be loud. It really makes it, like you're a doctor, like I'm sure you're not going to actively test every medicine out there, but without that experience, that may make that does make it harder for you to know what to properly prescribe. And I'm sure even if a parent calls you and says, my son says this inhaler tastes funny or it's too loud, you're like, well, it's an inhaler. I don't know what else to do. Like it's an inhaler. I don't know what else to do. And you don't know what else to prescribe because you're like, well, aren't all inhalers the same? When in fact, like I mentioned, I could tell you what each inhaler feels like to me, and they're all different.
yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. So, I mean, I think one of the things I'm picking up is that, again, as clinicians, we're often, writing the prescription, or often too, I have to say, working with the insurance company, or, working to see which inhaler is prescribed by, or has the best coverage with your insurance company. But there's so many other factors to play. And so really listening to your patients, listening to my patients personally to better understand, how things are going. And if they are complaining of it, realizing that, it's not that they're not all inhalers are alike, and people may have these different sensory aversions. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
helpful. Um, so I guess kind of with that, are there specific questions that you think clinicians should be asking to better understand a neurodivergent patient's experience?
Um, I think to also probably, I think maybe just learning more of their lifestyle. I think if you know you have a neurodivergent patient, whether it's an adult or whether it's a child, you have maybe knowing your patient better in terms of like what do they not like, what do they do, are they more active at night, is there behavior issues? Because like I said, I'm a special ed teacher, and I know for some of my parents it's a lot easier getting their kids to do things in the morning because they're tired, or maybe it's the worst time because they're tired, they haven't had their coffee, they like not the kids having coffee, but I'll say coffee, like they haven't had their time to walk around, eat, they haven't had time to do their routine to where they're centered and they're ready to do the things, tasks of them that they don't like. Because sometimes we have to think about um and in lens of a neurodivergent patient, especially for some of our patients that might be more on the challenging side, is they have a limit. Like they have a really like they have more of a limit of how much they're willing to do,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes that can be expanded with like exposure therapy of they're just doing the things and they just got to do it. For some kids that can handle and to that. There are some like, I'm a special ed teacher, and I know for some of my kids, if I'm asking them to do things like they really don't want to do, or we're talking, or I'm talking to a parent about things we know we really don't want to do. I try to tell like we try to do the sandwich effect. We do a good thing, the hard thing, then we do a good thing immediately after. So that way, to a good thing primes them to do something hard. The hard thing happens with, which is like the medication or task, and then the easy thing, like just help someone know that it's a good experience. You didn't die. It's okay. Everyone's good. And I feel like just knowing your patients more, whether you're talking to parents and just asking them like, does your child need prompting to be able to take their medicine? Do you have a hard time getting them to do hard tasks?
Mm-hmm.
And in general, and then maybe even just like, and just like you said, like if you know you're dealing with a neurodivergent patient, just as like what if you have a sensory diversion, what do you hate? Because I know sometimes, like if I take, like I said earlier, my bronchodilator, I know because it's a dust, I have that crunchy like feeling inside of my mouth if I don't rinse my mouth out completely. So if you have a child or maybe somebody else that's going through that, and they really don't like that feeling, and if they don't rinse their mouth out properly, if they have to take the same medication or something different, that might make them to where like I don't like that because that makes my mouth feel crunchy, and we don't understand why, but it's because of, like I said, the pro the process I have to do of I have to rinse my mouth out so I get all the dust out and everything out. And if we have a child or a neurodivergent adult that can't do that properly because of the sensory needs, not from just the medicine, but from the process to make sure you don't get sick from the after effects of not caring for yourself with that medicine, that can just spur them to be like, I'm not going to do that because I can't do this process properly.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, that's really informative and provides, I think, some nice, practical strategies that, people can do, like as clinicians, but maybe also as caregivers. Like I really loved that sandwich idea
Yeah,
of actually, I was just thinking of a patient that I'm like, I think I'm gonna use that
yeah,
idea on, because I think that would really be helpful. And I think just kind of like trying to learn more about that, and learning, like I think you said, like the right time, like maybe the caregiver or the patient themselves, they know like,
yeah,
hey, I'm more apt to do something new in the morning or evening or
yeah.
afternoon or whatever. So I think those are really great practical strategies. Um, I'm wondering too, like maybe again in your experience, if you could talk a little bit about maybe what are some of the emotional dynamics that you may experience, maybe again while you're taking medications, or it could be going to the doctor itself, that experience, as an asthma patient, as a neurodivergent asthma patient.
I feel like I'll say as a patient myself, sometimes it does get frustrating when I talk to my own physician because, like I said, for me, I have brought up in my own personal experience, like, hey, I'm more prompt to take my medication in the morning. At night, it's really hard for me to do
Hmm.
it, and that's because I'm a caregiver myself. I'm a dad.
Hmm.
I have a wife that's disabled, um, partner, and for me, I'm trying to help everyone get their nighttime routine down. So for me to get my nighttime routine down, my bronchodilator is the only thing I have to take at night. So for me, doing a one dose of thing morning is the absolute best because my morning is for me where I'm inside my car or I'm in, I'm getting ready and I do everything I need and I need to go. And I've tried talking to my doctor about that, like, hey, is there a medicine like that? And she's just like, well, if you want to take your meds like that, that's okay. And it's like, I mean, that have answers the question because, if you know your medication for me, if I know my medication is supposed to be taken twice a day, I don't want to take half my dose just to make it more convenient. I still want to make sure I'm taking top care of my asthma myself.
Mhm.
So it's like like I understand maybe not everything can be done once a day, but what can I do? Because for me, one of my top things is time blindness, and that's one of the reasons why. Because like I said, a lot of those medications you have to time. So for me, I have to set a lot of alarms, a lot of timers for myself. Like even when I was collegiately running, I knew how long I needed to take my inhaler before practices and races, and I would hound my coaches like, "How long do you think I have? Like, how long do you think I have?" Like, I would hound them around to the point where, like in high school, like they would just come to me when this event starts. Take your inhaler. When this starts,
Yeah, yeah,
like
do it
just
then.
because
Yeah, yeah,
for me, if I didn't personally, I just did it until I heard the call for my race or until I'm having an issue, I'm having a flare up. Then I'm like, oh no, I didn't do it at like the proper time. So I feel like when I'm explaining to my doctor some of those things, it's either, kind of like those, like for me, I set an alarm, but they'll be like, just set another alarm. And it's like, that might help me, but then now that's another task I have to do to set another alarm that throughout my day I have to remember to do to take care of myself. That helps, but for some people that are neurodivergent, like some of those like some of those self-care tasks that are like a checklist gets really hard to sitting down and doing. Like even though we know they help us, sitting down and constantly doing it day after day gets hard. And it could be a variety of factors. It could be because we're super tired that day. We didn't get enough sleep because some people, I think I want to say for a lot of us, it's because we become, adults and adults do things, adults work, adults have families, adults have
yeah,
things. So there's a variety of factors that makes it harder for us to like self-care because of our ADHD or autism. Like for me, if I'm undergoing a lot of stress or I'm doing all the things to take care of my family, I might forget to take my medicine. And if I forget to take my medicine for my ADHD, I'm more likely to not. I mean, dude, don't even ask me about my asthma medication. If
yeah,
I forget to
yeah,
take
yeah. If
that,
you don't do that well,
everything else is out the window. And
yeah,
I feel like trying to communicate those struggles with your doctor just makes it, it's hard to get on the same uh level as like your doctor seeing like my doctor's really good at trying to problem solve with me.
hmm
um Mine is, but I know a lot of other doctors are just like just do it or don't, and
hmm
then that's and and that's it. So I feel like yeah, for doctors just trying to listen. And for me, uh like I said, I've been very fortunate that I've also had the same physician that I had since I ran in high school and in college. So I've had the same physician for a long time. So she's known a lot of my issues. She's seen, she's seen me grow up from like young teenager whenever I turned 18, and she saw this transition to me as an adult and becoming, having a family and working full time. So she's seen this full transition, and I've been very fortunate that as I've brought up these problems, she's been able to problem solve with me. So for me, I've been very fortunate. Like I said, I know a few times we talk, and maybe like I said, like, I'll be like, hey, it's a better, and she'll be like, well, only take half of it. But for me, I still want to make sure I'm taking care of my asthma. But for someone that might not be as lucky as me, that might not have a physician where they've seen for a very long time, or they're seeing somebody brand new and they're trying to describe all these experiences that they're having, it would become really frustrating because, like, you know if your physician also isn't trained in knowing about ADHD and autism and how those things affect your patient, your mindset might just be just take your medicine. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I have to prescribe it, take it, or you don't breathe. Like
Yeah.
one or the other, like, and
Yeah.
I'm sure for patients like that can make them feel not heard. And
Yeah.
like I said, I've been very fortunate, but that's also me and my thing. I like to keep everything the same. That's why I've had the same physician for I don't know what I'm gonna do when she retires or when she leaves, but everyone is like, I love this doctor. I'm like, nah, I don't like change. So I
Yeah.
so I'm just gonna go here.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, I think we're gonna start wrapping up. So if there's any other like last comments or that you'd like to share, feel free. I think again, some of the things that you've really I think highlighted is like communication and as clinicians that we should learn, if we're already not familiar, but we really should learn about maybe some of these concerns or that neurodivergent patients may experience with like the medications we prescribe or even the procedures, lung function tests or other things like that we ask our patients to do. So I think that is, you gave us some really great practical considerations or practical things we can do. And then again, I think you really highlighted the importance of communication and trust with your healthcare provider. So I think those were really helpful. So I don't know, any last points that you'd like to mention before we wrap up?
Like I said, I don't know for I was like, I can't think of anything else other than like I said, just like communication, important. I mean, is super important, and just be willing to talk and have those discussion and problem solve.
Yeah, great, great. Okay, so today's conversation really challenges us to rethink what asthma care looks like, not just from a clinical perspective, but also from the patient's lived experience. And so for neurodivergent patients, asthma management isn't just about following the guidelines and prescribing the right medication. It's also about making sure that the medication is actually usable, tolerable, and aligned with how they experience the world. So, as clinicians and caregivers and educators and advocates, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to move really beyond some of these assumptions and build care that's really personalized or individualized. So, again, I want to say a huge thank you to William McLemore for sharing your experience and perspective with us today. And again, if you are listening to this podcast and really found this episode valuable, please share it with a colleague, a caregiver, anyone that's maybe working to improve asthma care. And again, you can always find more episodes from Inhale Life Conversations from the Chicago Asthma Consortium, from the Chicago Asthma Consortium website. And again, I'm Dr. Sharmila Nienhuis, and thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.